Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to be painting with acrylics, and we're going to be doing some like a special kind of series that I'm doing on different techniques. So tonight's technique is going to be covering blending. We're going to have 9 different ways to blend with acrylics, and I'll show you all of them, and hopefully by the end you'll kind of have a little bit better grasp and some techniques that you can try at home. Got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's managing chat tonight, so let's get started. It always kind of throws me off. I don't know how to intro these videos when I do something different. I'm used to just like jumping in and doing a straight up tutorial. So this is kind of a different take on tonight. We're not going to do a tutorial necessarily. We're just going to, if we have time at the end, I might do something, maybe put it all together, but for sure next week we'll be putting together some of these blending techniques that we've learned and talking a little bit more about them in practice. Tonight I just want to show you some examples of different kinds of blending and show you how to do them. So welcome, glad you're here. And be sure to mention in chat if you've got any particular questions or anything that you want me to go over. So, hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
How are you?
He's getting all set up over there.
Yes.
All right. So, blending. I think blending, especially for acrylics, it's one of the things that keeps people from enjoying painting with acrylics the most, I think. There's so many great things about acrylics. They're dry time. You don't have to wait between layers so long. You know, like oil paints, you have to wait sometimes days or even weeks if the paint's really thick before you can put on more layers. So with acrylics, you can just boom, 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 get a whole painting done in a couple hours, which is amazing. That's what I love the most about it. And with watercolors, you can blend really smoothly because they just kind of flow into one another. You can put 2 colors next to each other and they just kind of whoosh and magically blend, and you have to hardly think about it. But of course with watercolors it's harder to layer, and you definitely can't do some of the opaque layering that you can with acrylics. Gouache, you can do some of that. It's like gouache is like an opaque watercolor, so you can do some layering, but they also lift, so your layers underneath can be lifted if you put too much water and things on them with gouache. So with acrylics, what you see is what you get. You can layer as much as you want. They're amazing. You can do so much with them, and I've been working with them for like 30 years now, more. I've seen all the frustrations. I've done all the mistakes, and so tonight I'm going to hopefully kind of guide you and let you know some of the pitfalls that I've seen that you want to avoid with blending with acrylics, and hopefully make blending something that you don't dread and that it starts to come easier and easier with more practice. All right. That's the hope. And there are lots of different ways of blending, so you don't have to have super smooth blends. You could choose to do a style that's a little bit more painterly, like I like to call, where you see the brush strokes and that kind of thing. And I kind of tend to fall into the category of that on some of my artwork where it's not super smoothly blended. You can still see some of those streaks and brush strokes and things like that. This is the kind of blending that I like, where it's blended, but it still has a little character. So, but I will show you how to do the super smooth blends as well. And these would be like a super smooth blend where you can see where it's going from this light color into this dark color, and you can't see it all where the brush strokes are, that kind of thing. So, and then we're also going to cover how you do something like this in the background, where you have 2 colors that maybe aren't compatible for blending. What do you do in that case, and how do you get a nice looking blend without turning your paint muddy? And then something like this, where we're wanting to do a lighter color in the middle here and try to get a smooth blend, or like in this book here where we've got a really dark to light area, and how do you blend in the middle of something? Like, how do you get that look? All right, so those are some of the things that we're going to touch on tonight, hopefully. And again, as I paint, you can ask questions. If I need to go over a technique more than once, I'm happy to do that. I've got a little cheat sheet here already ready to go with our 9 different kinds of blending that we're going to touch on tonight. And before I start, are there any questions? No, we're good?
There are no questions.
Yay. All right, let's get going here. I'm just using regular heavy body acrylics tonight. I'm not doing anything fancy with them. Right now I don't have any mediums or anything. We are going to touch on mediums and how to add them if you want to use mediums to help blend. Some people find them really helpful. I use them sparingly, but I do use them sometimes. All right. So our first technique, and let's just go ahead and zoom in a little closer here on our first layer here. We've got wet on wet. This is going to be just like it sounds. You're going to be painting with 2 colors, and both of them are going to be wet. And 2 or more. Let me go ahead and get a little bit bigger brush. I'm going to use a flat brush for this, and we're not going to do anything fancy with this. This would be the same type of technique though if you were trying to paint within a shape. You just have to be a little bit more, careful with it. If you're trying to, fit something into a shape. Okay, so one of the helpful things with wet on wet is to kind of pre-mix the colors that you're going to use. So, and I find to have like 3 colors is helpful. Have your lightest color, your darkest color, and then a mid-tone between the 2 that's mixed up. So having that mid color already pre-mixed will kind of help speed things along for you as you get to blending. So let's mix up kind of a light pink maybe. I'm actually going to use, I'm not going to use my brush, I'm going to use a palette knife to do it so that I don't leave a lot of okay, so that'll be a nice pink there. Might add just a little bit of burnt sienna so it's more neutral pink. Okay, lovely. I know that sound is terrible, isn't it? Sorry. What? Nails on
It's not
top.
bad.
Not bad?
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and say we're going to do a darker pink with this. So say we have a flower or something like that, and we're going to do the dark part, and then we're going to have like a highlight. So maybe this is our highlight color, and this will be our darker color. I'm going to get a little bit of blue and mix that with my magenta there and make a nice darker color. Maybe a little bit of the burnt sienna. The colors don't matter. The main thing is to have 2 colors that you want to blend and then mixing the 2 together to get your 3rd color. Because this way we're doing some of the work on the palette itself. I'm going to get some white here. Use that, and I'm going to grab some of that color there. Get a little bit more of that burnt sienna. This color was just burnt sienna and magenta, so I'm just using this darker color. I got a little bit more white since I didn't mix up very much of that. But ideally, you would just grab some of this color and mix the 2 together to get your 3rd color, your blend color. And then you have 3 tones. If you're using the same general color family, you'd have 3 tones. You could do this with any colors. So if I wanted to do, introduce a different color, I could. One thing I will caution, though, one of the first problematic things that I see people doing when they're trying to blend is to blend two colors that are like too far opposite on the color wheel. So if you're trying to blend two colors on the opposite on the color wheel, you want to do wet on dry, and we'll come to that later. So if we're going to do wet onto wet blending, you want to make sure, number one, that you have two colors that mix a nice mid color. You don't want to have two colors that are going to mix mud, because if you you're only going to get what you put into it to this. So you want to do wet on wet with colors that blend well together. And one of the ways that you can tell if colors are going to blend well is if they're next to each other on the color palette, or in the same color family. You know, any of these colors are going to mix well together. If I'm using this color and this color, we know we're going to get something in the middle here, right? And we can mix pretty much any of these warmer value colors on this half and get a pretty color in between. But if we start moving onto this side and mixing an orange with a blue, we're going to get mud. These two are not going to mix well because they're too far apart on the color wheel. So you want to stay like, I don't know, four or five colors max away from each other to get a really pretty blend. Anything more than that, if you start to go, kind of like too far across here, you might end up with mud. And you can just test it ahead of time and see what you get. But that is the first thing to consider when you're doing wet on wet, is like, what color are you going to get when you blend these two together? It's really important to know that, okay? And then the other thing is that you really are not going to want to use water for this technique, except for if you want to dampen your surface. You can do that before you start. You can also have a spray bottle and very lightly spray mist as you're working, especially on a larger canvas. I just did a large canvas where, it was quite big, and we sprayed it well with water before I tried to blend anything on it. That just helps give you a little bit more time to work the paint. It also, the canvas won't suck the moisture out of the paint immediately as soon as you start working. So, but that is about the only time you're going to add water with wet on wet. So you want your paints to be wet, but you don't want to be adding water to your paints after you're putting them on, because you're not going to use water to help you blend anything with this one. Okay, let's stop talking and start showing. I just wanted to throw those out there though. All right, so I'm going to spray my paints here. I didn't put out very much. I probably should have mixed a little bit more here. Well, hopefully I have enough for these squares are small. So I am going to go ahead and just wet this down. So I'm going to just take my brush here and wet that area down that I'm working, and just really kind of work that in. You can let it set for a second if you want to. You don't want it like sopping wet, but just like a little bit of wetness on there will really help give you a little bit extra dry time so that it doesn't, like I said, pull all the moisture out of your paint before you start working. You can also, just on a larger canvas, just spray the whole thing with water, and you've seen me do that. All right, so I'm going to start with my lightest color. Pick that up on my brush, and I'm just going to go across the top with it and come down about halfway and stop there, okay? And then I'm going to wipe my brush out. I'm not going to clean it out, especially with this. We know these are all basically the same color family. I'm going to get my next color. I'm going to put it kind of in the middle there and work it down a little bit into this next one, but not too much. Wipe that out. And then while these two are still wet, I'm going to use this damp brush. It basically has no paint on it. It has maybe a little bit, but not much. And I'm going to very, very lightly just drag it through that paint and try to work out any brush strokes that I'm seeing. And if we get these paints wet enough, and you kind of do want to go fairly thick with the paint, like I'm not globbing it on here, but using a thicker application of paint can help give you a little bit more time, but you see how nice that blend is right there. Okay, so before this dries though, I want to do my next color. So you kind of have to work fast, and that is one of the things about acrylics that can be tricky, is that they don't give you a ton of time to play around. You've got to kind of just get the paint down and go. All right, so this one, I'm only going to go here. I'm not going to go back up halfway. Remember with these two, I kind of came down farther. With this darkest color, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put it kind of where I want it, and then I'm going to wipe this out, and then it's going to really kind of dominate. So it's going to come up as soon as I start kind of blending it up into, and it'll pick up some of the color I've already put on there, and I'm going to blend it up like that. Okay, and I can keep going with it. I might bring it up a little bit higher. And I can, as long as that one isn't wet or isn't dry yet, I can bring it all the way up, you know, as far as I want. And the thing with this one is that we can do this as many times as we need to, and sometimes these first layers might show a little bit of streaking just because this paint is slightly thinned down because of the wet background. It kind of waters down the paint slightly, but you notice I'm not adding water. I haven't done anything but actually want my brush slightly dry for the blending part of it. You don't want to be adding water to this, because what that'll do is just wipe off what you've done. So, and then we also don't want to, one of the other things that I see people doing, I'm going to get some of that mid-tone because I'm kind of getting a little too much of that darkest color there in the middle. But one of the other things that I see people doing is messing with it far beyond when they should be, because the paint starts to dry and then you end up with uneven coverage, because what happens is that paint will start to stick to your brush as soon as it starts to dry. And okay, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm still seeing a few lines there, but you can see it's on its way to looking nice and blended there. Okay. And again, this is one of the techniques I use if my colors are similar. So in a flower or something like that, where we know that you're using all the same colors, like this one up in the upper corner here, that's definitely what I did there. Using those colors that are kind of pre-mixed and putting them on all together wet and just letting them blend as you put them on works great. Okay. So the next one would be in the case of something where maybe I've got two colors that don't match, that I don't want to blend. Or so maybe I've got a sky here that that I don't want, that maybe I have like a color like yellow or something in the clouds, and I don't want to create green clouds, right? So I want to have a way to blend this blue down into my yellow color for a sunset sky or something like that, right? So one of the tricks is to use, and this is, I'm going on dry canvas here, but I could do wet here. This is fine. This is just the background. So I'm showing you how to avoid having muddy mixtures here in this one. So these are two colors that we don't want to mix together, that we want to blend. How do you do that? Like it's not counterintuitive, right? But it happens all the time with acrylics. What?
Said inquiring minds want to know.
Right. Happens all the time, especially in landscapes. I see it a lot. But really, anytime you've got two colors, it's sometimes in flowers too. Like I'll have a flower that's got like purple going into, we did a lily one time that had purple going into like a lime green. It was a terrible color combination because you can blend the two, you know, It's something that you see in nature, but it was really hard to blend them.
Hard to recreate it.
Right, hard to recreate it, yeah. So I'm going to let this dry. We're going to come back to it. So mystery for later. All right. you just
Cliffhanger.
have to be in suspense for a minute.
Yes.
Just I'll let that dry. But having this white layer will be one of the keys. So doing your blue or whatever other color, and especially if you have a lighter color that you're going to be blending it into, having a little bit of a white is a nice little buffer. So having that as a starter background will kind of help us for the yellow that we're going to put on top here. Okay. It will turn a little bit green, but it won't be as green as if we blended it straight into the blue. And I'll show you that later once we do it. Okay, so let's do the double loading, then we'll come back to this once it's dry. So double loading is a technique that's used in decorative painting. It's also called one stroke painting, where you basically do everything on the brush. You load your brush in a way that all you have to do is one stroke, and you can do flowers and things like that. And I have done one, I did a peony painting with the big blue morpho butterfly a while back that used this technique for the peony blossoms. So Mark's going to look that up for you and put it in the chat so you can see it. But let me decide what colors I want to use.
If Mark was paying attention, he would be doing that right now. So what is Mark doing? Looking up a peony?
A peony with blue morpho.
Got it.
Awesome. I love that reply. Mark, what is Mark doing? Mark does not know what he's doing.
There's no way I was going to get away with that. So I had to come clean.
Mark was not following at all. Oh, that's so awesome. Okay, so I'm going to make a light turquoise here for this one. Again, doesn't really matter what colors you use. You're just going to use a light and a dark version of a color. And oftentimes this is used with the same color family, so not a lot of cross mixing. Although you can do this, I mean, really with anything, but it works the best if you have a good difference in values. Yep. Okay. Difference in values between the two colors that you're using. So I'm going to use this light turquoise, and then I'm just going to dip into that darker turquoise for the other half. And I am going to add a little bit of burnt sienna because that turquoise is so transparent. That burnt sienna will help make it a little bit more opaque. Okay.
You did a blending demo on that one too.
What?
You did a blending demo on that video too.
I did?
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Nice.
Double blending across the sky.
There you go. Yeah, I've done blending a few times in different demos. So this one hopefully will be a little bit more comprehensive for y'all. Okay, so this one uses a little bit more paint on the brush maybe, so make sure you're mixing up enough of it. And you want to start out with a large brush that is big enough to cover your space in maybe like three passes. So, want a big brush for this. You do not want to do this technique with a tiny little brush. It's not going to work because you only have that much space. Maybe if you have a small area it would work, but on something like this, we want to have a large brush. You could even go a little bit bigger and do it, do like a one pass with a really large brush. You could probably get it all in one big brush, but I'm going to show you with kind of more of a medium size. It'll still work. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll see. All right, so the first thing you want to do is get some water on your brush, and you want a little bit more water on your brush than you normally would have. This just helps that paint kind of flow a little bit. So a little bit of water, dip it in your water cup and kind of wring it off against the side. You can kind of tap it once on a paper towel just to get off any extra. You don't want any water here on the ferrule that'll be dripping down into anything, but pretty juicy brush, right? And a soft brush will work best for this as well. And then I'm going to dip into my light color here and blend it out. Pressing down nice and hard so those bristles kind of splay out and that paint gets distributed well into the brush. But I want it to kind of stop around right here. It's going to kind of ombre right into the middle. And then I'm going to load a little bit more and really get it nice and thick on that brush. And then I can do one of two things. I can just go in and kind of put the color on first and then put my dark color. That's usually what I'll do, especially if I have a large area to cover. I will go in and put my light color in, pull it down about halfway, and then I will grab that darker color, pressing down, pushing back and forth, and walking it in the same direction in the same area. You don't want to go too far up with this because you don't want to get too much of that white down or too much of the dark in there. You want, if it looks good here, it's going to look good on your canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and go straight to the canvas. You kind of have to work fast. You don't want to mess around too much with this. This takes a little bit of practice to kind of get the feel for it. But you can see how nice you can get a really good blend right there with just a couple brush strokes. This is one that I use a lot. It works great. Go a little bit darker right there. Works great, and really the key is just to try not to get your colors too far blended into one another. And that just takes practice and kind of working in the same area. There, if you do, you can just kind of wipe it on a paper towel and reload it. But it's a really nice blend. There you can see. Okay, we're almost dried, but not quite. So let's go to glazed and floating. Floating is another technique that you use a lot in decorative painting. So this is one of the first ways of blending, quote unquote, that I learned. Let's go ahead and paint my background to start with. I'm going to go ahead and get some like orangey yellow, maybe kind of a peachy color here, and then we'll glaze over the top of it. I'm just going to go ahead and put it all the way up. So this one may have to dry too. Let me think if there's any other ones that have to dry. We can put them on now, and then that way we don't have to wait in between. No. Okay. Well, this one actually, Scumbled, we do. So Scumbled, let's go ahead and put our background on for Scumbled. Floating works best if your background is kind of lightish too, I think. It doesn't work as well, I don't think, for dark on dark colors. So that's just one thing to think about, because floating and glazing are going to be transparent layers. So you just have to think about the color that you're using has to be darker than the color you're going over the top of for it to show up, you know. Scumbling is a way to get around that. So if you have a dark background and you want to glaze or put color over the top of a dark background, this is the technique you might want to use. All right, so let's go ahead and get, just trying to use different colors here on all of these. Let's do like a little purple or something. Like a night sky, dark blue, purple. This is magenta and, yeah, there we go. Magenta and Phthalo turquoise that I'm using here. And I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm just going to put it on here, and then we'll let this dry. nice background for our scumbling. Scumbling is to me, one of the easiest ways, if you can control it and, learn the technique. It does need a little bit of finessing, but you use it for clouds, you use it for, I used it on my books there that I showed earlier, we used it on that vase, the dark black vase with the white, that's scumbling. So it's really, really helpful. And it's also can be used kind of in the middle of something. So you don't need to go right to the edge of something. If you have some like highlighting that needs to be done in the middle of an object, scumbling is your best bet for a good result. Just easiest technique to try. All right, let's go back to our wet on dry. I think that's all dry now. And we'll do our yellow on here. So I'm going to get some of the yellow and some white, maybe a little bit of pink. Maybe we have like a kind of peachy yellow color, kind of similar to that one. Right. That looks good. All right, so this is one of the ways to blend that you will be using water. So glazing, floating will be using water, and this is similar to it, but we're putting our paint on a little thicker. So this technique is very similar to this, whereas we're going to be using water to help us blend here. Whereas here we were just using paint to blend and no water. All right, so I'm going to take my paint off of this brush a little bit. And I'm just going to grab a little bit, kind of on the very tip of it. I'm not loading it all the way through really thick. I'm going to be a little bit more stingy with the paint and careful where I'm putting this because I don't want it to get too far up into that blue. So I'm going to go ahead and go over that white, and you can see how that white has really helped us have a spot to blend. And then what I'm going to do is take that off, wipe that out, and use a clean, wet-ish brush. And just kind of damp. Not too much water because you'll kind of ruin the effect, but just damp. You can still see that there is some yellow on there, but we're just going to use that water and our damp brush to blend across. Ooh, that was a little bit not dry right there. See, it's trying to lift. And then right here, I'm just going to use my brush. Is not cleaning out. I don't want that yellow up there. Oh my gosh, this brush is not coming clean. You want to clean out that yellow, most of it out. There we go. I'm just using water up there. I'm just using it and wiping it off. Wiping across and wiping it off. You can see how nice we're getting a really pretty blend now, and that it's not green. Okay. If we were to mix that blue that we had first there, if we were to mix it without white and with just yellow, well, we're obviously going to get green, right? It's going to make a green. And you're going to have, some muddiness to it. You can see the difference there. very grayed out. Same two colors. No white and wet into wet. Okay? All right. Any questions about that?
No questions.
Great. And this is the same thing we do when we're doing multiple colors in a sky. We're figuring out which ones we need to do first. If we know we're going to have blue and lots of other warm colors like oranges and things, we'll just let our blue dry and then put our warm colors, oranges and yellows and things over the top while it's dry. No problem. All right, so let's see if this is dry. This needs to be completely dry. I don't think that that's dry enough yet. I'm gonna let it dry a little bit longer because I kind of was trying to, that blue was trying to lift off here. Let's go ahead and do our dry brush flick. Okay, so for dry brush flicking, with my own technique, I don't know if you'll find this in a book anywhere, but this is what I like to use. I showed you on that pumpkin at the beginning where there's some streakiness to it. It's still blended, but you can see the process of the painting. So I'm just going to use one of my more sturdy brushes. This one is the Aspen short-handled brush. And I really like them because they have some texture to them and they work really well for this. They're not going to give you a super smooth blend for some of these other techniques. So wet into wet, wet on dry, double loading, a brush like this that's got kind of thick individual hairs and some texture to it, some stiffness. Maybe not the best one for a really smooth application of paint, but for something like this where we don't care about smoothness, we're all about the texture, perfect, okay? So let's go ahead and do something here with some pink again. I think pink will be fun. Kind of a pinky peachy. Let's get some magenta. And this is one of the nice techniques for, you don't have to worry about the colors you're using. So this works with really any colors because we're not really technically blending. We are flicking. So you're setting your brush down and you're just bloop like that. Just letting that brush kind of do its thing. It's going to end up, this would probably work well if we had something on the background here, but it's fine. Yeah, like a starting color. It's fine if we don't, though. All right, so just gonna try to get a little bit of a solid color at the top there, and come down a little bit farther than halfway. This is be like if I'm doing a flower petal or something like that again. All right, and then maybe in the middle maybe we'll do some red. These two are about the same value, so they're not going to be that much dramatic blend at this point, but you can see it's already kind of blending a little bit just with that technique, right? Just flicking it back up over. And then if we want to add some lighter color, we'll grab some white. I'm just going to go this way. We can wait in between layers if we want to add our white. Or if these paints are still wet, you can just do these immediately. So whenever you want to. It doesn't have to, you don't have to wait. There's not that much difference between those colors right now, so I'm gonna have to let them dry. There's too much paint on here. see if I can get a little bit thicker of this light color here. I'll do it on this side. There we go. Now you can see it. So you just drag it and lift. And I'm not pulling with my hand. I'm literally just doing like this with my brush, and I'm barely setting it down here. It's flexing a little bit and then just pulling it down towards myself so that the drag, as it lifts off the canvas, it's creating a natural drag and a natural kind of gradient. All right, and the key to this one is just to not overwork it while it's wet. So you wanna, at this point, we've got a couple layers of paint down. We're gonna just let it set, do its thing, and we can add more later. We can do this as many times as we want, any of these techniques. If you don't get it right the first time, you know, you just come back and add more later. But works great. I love this one for flowers because it makes it so easy to control. I think this one is the most beginner friendly technique, probably. I think, just because anybody can do this. I think you practice it a little bit, and I say anybody. Mark didn't really like this one when he was painting. Let's be honest. I can also flick it this way. You know, if you want to, you could do it this way. But
Can you flick it on the diagonal?
yes, you can.
Wow, you can flick it any way you want to? That's edgy. We are going off the rails tonight.
Shut up.
You're two wild and crazy guys.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Whatever.
Oh, that's it. I'm going to get a paintbrush and break it in half and do the wire thing so it looks like it's sticking through my head instead of an arrow. That would be a great Halloween costume.
That's your Halloween costume?
Yes.
I love that idea, actually.
We need to make that.
I think you do. You're really funny. You holding a palette
Yes.
in one hand.
Has anyone seen my brush?
It's the title of your costume.
Yes. My art installation.
I love it. We need to make that happen.
Okay.
I have a few old brushes out here. I'm sure you can pull from.
Maybe I could get a Princeton sponsorship out of it.
Oh, geez. Okay, I'm just cleaning off my palette here. So I got some more room to work. So far, so good. Am I going through these too fast? Are you guys getting it? The techniques down here. Hopefully.
I think they're getting them. They're enjoying it.
Yay, good.
A couple of people said they've been following you for a while, learning. So
Awesome.
this is good help.
Perfect. Good supplement. Well, the whole idea behind these particular videos that we're doing that are kind of more techniques based is just so that if you have a question about a particular thing, that you can just go to that. You don't have to sit through a whole tutorial to find it, find your answers. So that's kind of where this idea was born.
And also it reassures everybody that it's okay just to practice.
Absolutely,
When
yeah.
you sit down to paint, you don't have to create something every time. You can just be doing techniques.
Yeah, and playing, I think, just getting out your paints and messing around with them is really important in between paintings. Even just first time getting into watercolor, that's what I did. I spent hours and hours just blending and messing around with different color combinations and trying different things with them just to get a feel for them. So the more you do this with your acrylics, once you go to your actual tutorial, the more comfortable you're going to be with it. It's just going to be easier for you because you're already familiar with how to use them. All right, so let's go to glazed here. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this large brush. Glazing and floating. What?
Your greatest fan wants to know what we're going to be for Halloween.
Oh, Gigi's going to be a sunflower.
And Peepaw is going to try to be a bee.
Yes, he's going to try to find a bee costume. We found the funniest. Do not, just warning you right now, do not Google bee costume for men. Very disturbing.
Some booty shorts.
Some booty shorts bee costumes. Oh my gosh. My eyes were burned. It was so funny. It's like, I think I'm going to get this for you, Mark. Oh,
it's like, we can't do that to our granddaughter.
No.
She will be scarred for life.
Yes. Now, this one is one that you can use a medium for. We are going to show mediums on this one, but this would be one that I would probably go ahead and use an extender, like a satin glazing liquid for, that has a slow drying extender in it. I'm not going to, I'm just going to show it with water, but that would be recommended if you have it. Okay. So this is if you don't have it, and we'll use the mediums down here. So I'm going to use my flat brush. You want a smooth brush, a very soft brush, not super soft, because like this one's got some, some tension to it, but the bristles are very soft and they come to a nice point, very smooth. If there's any flaws in your brush, this will show it. So you want to make sure that your brush is nice and smooth and it does not have any bumpy bits. You want to use a new fresh brush for this if you have it. And let's just go ahead and glaze with some of this bright red here. It doesn't really matter what color you use for the glazing. It's similar loading to the double loading. So I'm going to load it on the corner of the brush, dipping it into the corner, just a little bit of paint. I don't need a ton on there. I'm not like loading it halfway with paint. I'm just getting that very corner and then pressing it down onto my palette and going back and forth. I'm not moving into this way up into that. Unless I make sure I'm really pressing hard, then and kind of cleaning it off, then I can kind of move it up into that. But for the most part, just kind of stay in the same general area and really press down. See how far those bristles are splaying out. You want a nice gradual blend on the brush, on your palette. The more of a nice gradual blend you're seeing on here, the better it's going to look on your canvas. And then one last thing that I like to do before I start is to grab just a little bit of water on the corner of that brush. It kind of pushes the paint away from that corner. And then I'm going to tap it on here and that'll kind of pull off any color. And you can see there's just a little bit of color there. All right, so you can do this anywhere. This is great for like getting into corners or whatever. I'm just going to kind of glaze up halfway. I'm going to go across. And stop. Okay. And clean that out. I'm going to pick up some more. And you can do this as many times as you need to. I've got a little bit thicker paint on it this time. So that time I was kind of watery. I'm going to go ahead and go across. It is going to pick up a little bit of that color on here. So I can kind of brush that off. And I'm just going to pull it up. Now I've wiped my brush off completely. Similar to what we did here, where we kind of using the water now to just help blend that off. Sometimes I'll use my finger and just go across, or you can even use a cloth and just kind of grab that. You don't want to see a line there, is the main thing. Okay. Get a little bit more. I'm going to do this one more time. This is still wet, so I can kind of still mess with it. Wipe my brush. Wipe it. It's very similar to what we just did there. So Okay, I think that's good. Now, one of the things that you can also do with this is, let me get, I'm trying to think of what colors I want to use. Get a little bit of that red. Maybe some yellow. You can use it to do something like in the middle of, like if you have a line of color, like on my books, say, I had that dark color that was in the crease of my books between two colors here. So I floated in all of these areas, and I did it on opposite sides. So let me see if I can get it in here without messing this up. So say this is the edge of the book here on this side, do it that side, flip my brush over and do it again on this side. And now I have it blended on both sides. Okay? It's a nice little trick. And it's just one of the easiest ways to get, especially a small blend in a very tight area. This little glazed floating technique works great. All right, let's do our scumbled. This is dry now. So for scumbled, you're gonna want kind of a specialty brush. Gonna need a brush, round or a filbert is best, I find. But any of these kind of, well, these are the same brush. Blend, this one's called a blender. This is the Deerfoot Stippler. You've seen me use both of those quite a lot. This is just an old round brush that's one of my old Aspens that's gotten kind of janky. I could take it and cut it, or, you know, I can probably just use it as it is. It's probably a little bit of pointy for this, but the more that I used it, the more it got worn down to a nubbin. It would work better. So like the older and more scruffy the brush, the better for this technique. This one is a select brush called a scumbler. It's specifically made for scumbling, and it's kind of like a hog bristle brush, natural hog bristle brush. And then here is one of my old, very cheap hog bristle brushes that also would work for this, okay? So any of these brushes work great for scumbling. I'm gonna go ahead and use my Deerfoot Stippler. It's my favorite one to use. And this would be for like maybe we've got a night sky and we've got some galaxy clouds or something in it that we want to have some color. All right, so we're gonna get our color, and you can work it all the way through the brush, or you can load it just on the corner of it if you want a little bit more control. This also works for like the edges of clouds and things like that, all kinds of different applications. Okay, so the main thing with scumbling is you want to have your brush mostly dry and mostly free of paint. So you don't, and you also want to use a brush that can take a beating. So that's why I'm using these heavier or damaged brushes to begin with. So like these brushes are meant to be beaten up on, you know, they're gonna take a beating. One thing I will say about natural hog bristles is these will break. So you might get little bits of brush in your painting. I don't find that these do that very much. So these are my most recommended. The Deerfoot Stipplers, I use them for a ton of stuff. And not just this technique, but they also work great for trees and all kinds of things. So I'm taking most of that paint out. It should feel almost dry to the touch. And then I'm going to take it onto the canvas. And with scumbling, you want a light touch. I am kind of pressing down, but I'm not going back over the areas that I've already done. And this is one of those techniques that is great if I want color in the middle of something. So let's just kind of do a little circular area here. Okay.
You've done that like with the moon and the sun and
I've
stuff
done
like
it,
that.
yes, tons. It's a great way of blending, especially in the middle of an object that's kind of rounded or more organic shaped. because it's almost impossible to get a nice smooth blend on a rounded shape with these other techniques. So this technique works really great for it. So let that dry, and then we'll come back to it and add more layers. You don't want to come back in immediately with more layers, because what will happen is you'll start to pull off any wet paint that's still there that's trying to dry, and you'll end up with a dark area. You'll end up with like a halo of dark in the middle. So that is one of the boo-boos that you want to avoid with scumbling. You have to have a little patience. Even though you put the paint on dry, it is still wet and it's not completely dry yet. So you have to like give it a few minutes, let it dry completely, and then come back to it. You can add more layers later, but because you're scrubbing, if you do it too soon and that paint's not fully dry, you're scrubbing that paint, the previous layers, off when you do your new layers. So, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so we're gonna avoid that. We're just gonna leave it, let it dry, and we'll come back to it. Okay. All right, so this is a mop brush. This is similar to what I do with my wet on wet and wet on dry, where I'll use my damp brush to kind of blend out areas. But with the mop brush, it's just a little softer, so it's kind of a dedicated brush meant for blending. Let's just go ahead and mix up a kind of a pretty green. Okay. And with the mop brush, usually what I'll do, because you kind of want to keep it sort of slightly, you can have it damp, but you want to keep it mostly dry. What I usually do is, if I do use one, which I don't use it very often, is put my paint on with another brush and then grab the mop to do the blending part. So, all right, so let's just blend these two kind of greens here. And one thing with this is that it does, it's similar to scumbling. This technique will allow you to do more kind of organic shapes. So I'm going to do a couple of different areas of the dark color, and then come in with the lighter color in between. So this works for clouds and things like that too. I want to get this paint on here quickly while that's still wet, and I'm putting it on fairly thick. You can see that the paint is going on fairly thick, and I'm not really too worried about trying to blend these colors, although you can kind of start the blending process if you want to. You can end up with something like that, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and dip just a little bit of that into the water to get most of that color out. This would be the same thing that I would do is if I took the brush that I just used and wiped it clean to do my blending, which is what I did in that wet and wet technique, right? So basically it's very similar, only you have kind of a brush that's dedicated to it. A lot of times mop brushes will be a little bit fuller than this one. This one's kind of a softer one, but mainly you work with your paper towel and you're just like pulling paint off of the canvas with it. And you see there's a lot of artists that use mop brushes in their work. I see that one's not really doing a good job for me. I'm going to go back to this one and just use my regular brush. Well, let me get a different mop brush. Let me get a little bit bigger one. I'm going to use it dry. Let's see if that helps. There we go. that brush just couldn't handle the water. It kind of flopped out on me. There are some mop brushes that are a little bit thicker that they use damp, so I think this one probably I wouldn't wet it down if I needed to do this with it. Okay, so there you get the idea. And so that's a nice way of, you know, this technique works. But again, I could have used my other brush with a similar result. This one, just because it's a little bit softer, it does give a softer blend. You're not going to have as much brush strokes showing with a really true mop brush that's super soft. You're not going to get the brush strokes that you would get with something like this. But I still don't tend to grab them because I just find them kind of unnecessary. I don't know. That's just personal printing. It's 100% whatever works for you. So I know a lot of artists that love them. Not my cup of tea. And I think it's just because I'm used to doing it the way I do it. And so I just find it a little bit, slows me down. Okay, I'm going to go back to this one. I'm going to get some just white this time. Picking it up, working it through my brush, and then pulling most of that paint off. And I mean, you really pull off more than you think you need. I'm going to pick up just a little bit more. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to go just the middle there. And again, try not to, don't linger in one spot. You want to be moving. Put your paint down and move away from it. If you stay in one spot, you're going to end up with a dark area. It's just going to happen. So the more you practice at this, the better you get. And I can keep coming back and adding more and more layers to this to get it to the darkness or whatever that I want. All right. Let's go to extender medium here. We're almost done with all these. Actually, I think I'm going to go back to this dry brush flick and I'm going to put a darker red down here. So I'm going to get my magenta and a little bit of burnt sienna and maybe some of this blue. So this is on dry. I'm going to set that down and just pull up. So you can see how a flower petal can really take shape pretty easily. I want a little bit more water on my paint there so that it kind of doesn't quit on me so quickly. I'm going to use the corner of my brush and force that paint to move a little bit. It was a little too dry right there. There we go. There you go. Now we've got a nice like deep red blend into the lighter color. So I didn't have enough water in the paint right here, and it didn't blend very well for me right there. And see, going over it with water right there lifted it off. And I had a little too much water on my brush. Let me do this. So if you have that mistake, and that's common, that happens. Let me show you how to fix it. I'm going to get some water and I'm going to wipe it off. It's still wet, so you should be able to wipe it right off while it's still wet. That paint layer was kind of thick, but it wasn't dry yet, so it allows me to just wipe it right off. All right, and then I'm going to go in there. Try not to touch this layer here. Do that again. And even if I did, you know, completely mess it up and it was all really ugly looking, what I could do is come back in with my mid-tone color and just go back and forth in the middle. And it kind of cleans up everything and makes it all kind of blend in. Wipe that out. So I can take some of my mid-tone color. Taking some of that pink and white. And just go back and forth. Okay. And when I'm doing flowers and things, you'll see me kind of do this. And I'll just go back and forth with my light color. I usually start kind of with a mid-tone color and just have it kind of on there. And then do my dark and light over the top of it. And it makes it really easy to get a nice little, fun little blend there. Okay. And because it's kind of real painterly, you're not having to worry about it looking super smooth or anything like that. I think so far this one turned out the most smooth out of all of them. Let's see what happens when we use our extender. So let's use... Oops. Dropping stuff. Let me show you some different extenders that I have. I just kind of pulled the ones that I have, but there's a lot of different brands out there that are really good. The one that I tend to use the most is my Satin glazing liquid because it's kind of multi-purpose. It does a lot of different things, but it also has this slow drying extender in it. So if I do feel like I've got a large area and I may need a little bit extra drying time when I'm blending, I will use this. The nice thing about this one is that you can use as much of it as you want. You can use mostly glazing liquid and just a tiny touch of paint, and it's going to be fine. You're not going to have any issues. You don't have to, it says any ratio, right? So you don't have to worry about how much of this you're adding. A lot of extenders and retarders, like this one is a acrylic retarder from Gumbacher. It's a really good brand, but you can only use 30% with your paint. So you don't want to have over 30% of this product in your paint, or you can have problems, okay? With your open acrylics, Open is a brand of golden that it makes your paint a little bit more like oil paints. So this can take like 24 hours to dry. So this one is a medium that you can add to your paints. You can add it to one of your glazing liquids. So I could add these two together if I wanted to in whatever ratio I wanted. So I could pay like 4 parts of this to 1 drop of this. And it would just give a little bit of bump up to the drying time of my glazing liquids. So it's a really great medium to have. I haven't used it much. This one is the open thinner, so it's a little bit different product. It'll make your paints even thinner than this one. This one, I don't believe you have to worry about the amount that you use. I don't see where it says anything about, it says use thinly. So, so you don't want to go on with thick paint with that. This one thins out your paints and extends the dry time, and you don't want to use more than 25% of this with your paints. So again, you kind of have to watch it. High flow medium thins and extends acrylic colors. So this is basically the same thing as this one, only this one is the open, so it has even more drying time. This one less so. And I think that's, yeah, this one doesn't say anything about having to worry about your drying time. So you could use something like this, like you would use something like this for maybe like if you were doing a lot of glazing or something and you wanted to have a little bit more drying time with your glazing. Probably even maybe a little bit more even than my glazing liquid. I don't know. I haven't used this one yet. I just got it. And then matte medium is another. It's got extender in it. Anytime you see extender or retarder or something like that, or open, if it's golden, the open brand is going to have longer drying time. Okay. So any of those you can add to your paints. The matte medium, you don't have to worry about how much you're adding. So matte medium and glazing medium are the two that I would recommend the most for this. And then if you really need more time, then use the open, because none of these you have to worry about how much you're adding to your paint. You can just kind of add away however you want to and not worry about it. The less stress, the better for me. So I'm going to use my satin glazing liquid that I normally use. And just put some out there. I'm just going to add this into my paints and do a wet on wet and see if we get a smoother blend. I don't know that we will, but we'll try and see if it makes a difference, okay? Let's go ahead and mix up a kind of a pretty peach color, maybe. How are you doing, hon?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing?
Good. Painting. It's always a good day when I get to paint.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I'm glad you enjoy it. This wouldn't be a good channel if you didn't.
True. True. Hope everybody is ready for Halloween. We just bought like a bucket load of candy for our millions that we tend to get on Halloween. It's also our granddaughter Noah's birthday, so we're going to get to see her. I'm really excited to see her. She was the one that was asking about her Halloween costume earlier.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. She coming down. They live a couple hours away, so we don't get to see them as often as we like. So this will be a treat.
And not a trick.
Ooh.
See what I did there?
I see. Well, I set you up for that.
You did.
You're welcome.
I was paying attention for that.
I see that. Yeah. All right, so I'm just going to take some of my glazing liquid and mix it in. So not quite 50-50, something like that. I don't want to dilute it too much, but it's just going to help my paints be a little bit more fluid and give them a little bit extra time to work. Okay. And then go a little bit darker with this one. Not very much what I wanted there. All right.
So what colors you're mixing there?
I am mixing up a red, trying to get it kind of a peachy red. It's not cooperating with me. So I've got my two reds there, the magenta and the Cadmium Red Light, and I'm adding some of the burnt sienna. It really doesn't matter, though. I don't know why I'm worried about it. Just get some color on here. I want something pretty, though. Okay. We'll see about that. Okay. Go ahead and put it over here and grab up some of that glazing medium. Go ahead and mix that in. Usually I just do this on my brush as I work, you know, just grab a little bit of the glazing medium as I load it, but I'm going to go ahead and put it all the way through the paint this time just so you can see that it is worked through. Okay, so we'll blend these two colors together. They're not really as pretty as I was hoping, so it's not the best color you use for it, maybe. Okay, so let's try something similar to this, but we'll use the Filbert and not the mop brush. So we'll see if we can get kind of something similar to what we just had. I'm going to get a little bit more of that extender. And I'm just going to kind of put my paint out in the middle. Maybe go ahead and grab the darker color. It's not too bad. Didn't look very pretty on the palette, but okay, so I'm going to put my paint out. It's fairly thick here. And this extender should give us plenty of time to play with it and add to it. So the first thing I do is just kind of wipe my brush out and then kind of go across and start to blend. If I have any particular areas where there's like a transition between colors, kind of touch into those. And kind of work my brush back and forth. And I'm really using a very light touch here. And that's what helps, having like a little bit thicker paint here helps, because then I have a little bit more time to play. Usually when I'm doing this, I am doing like a large background or something like that. And so what I'll do is like do this in sections where I'll have all this stuff pre-mixed and ready to go, and I'll do like a small area and then I'll blend it and then do a little bit more that's adjacent and blend it while it's still wet. So, and just kind of work my way around a larger canvas. So I probably wouldn't do the whole canvas like this and try to blend it, because it would dry before I got the chance to blend. But you can see how this is doing a great job here for me. And then at any point that I need to, I can add more of the other colors, so I can go back in, or maybe even add some white, or a lot of times I'll drop in another color. I'm grabbing some glazing medium when I'm picking up new paint. So, you know, I might go in and pick up, you know, add like a drop of yellow in here or something like that, and blend it in while that's wet. Also making sure that I'm trying to make sure that the consistency of the paint stays about the same. I don't want to go too watery with the paint, so I'm not picking up any water here and not adding too much of the extender, because I don't want the paint to go on thin, because it will wipe off what I've already done. Okay, so you can see though that I can get some really nice little blending effects there. And the thing with these techniques is I generally hardly ever will just like do it once and done. Like most of the time what we're doing is we'll put the paint down, we'll blend it out, we'll let it dry, and then we'll come back in and do another layer, blend it out, let it dry, then maybe come in and do like a little bit of glazing here and there, let it dry, go in and do some scumbling, let it dry. So a background like this, if you go back in and watch this video where we did the background, I can almost guarantee you we did all of those techniques. We probably scumbled in this area, probably glazed some of these darker areas. We did some wet on to wet. We did some, I'm sure we used the extender in here too. We did our wet on dry in these areas because we didn't want the purple and the green to mix at all, to make gray. So we probably went in and did certain areas, let them dry in between, and did all of like a combination of all these different techniques to get something like this. And so if you kind of are familiar with some of the techniques and what your preference is, you practice them on paper and kind of get an idea of how to load your brush and what works best, and just know, oh, if I have two colors that are not going to mix well, I need to wait until it dries and put the wet onto the dry, that kind of thing. You're going to have a lot more fun with your painting, I think. So the extender works really great, and if I was to do the straight across, it would do a really beautiful soft blend, you can see. But I wanted to show you how you can get these nice blends right in the middle of your paintings with the extender added. All right. And then the last one is kind of a fun one. It is, I'm going to see if I can get this off because I kind of made a mistake there. Oh, good. That was going to bug me. Yes, I am like that. That is. Okay. So the last one is stippled, and this is one similar to the dry brush where I think that pretty much anybody can do, and it's a really nice one for if you have like an area that you want a little bit of texture, a little bit of character in it. So it's a great way of like blending. You can also call it maybe like optical blending or something like that. But using the Stippler brush, the Deerfoot Stippler here, I'm just going to use some dark blue, maybe add some white to it. This is Prussian Blue. Maybe a little bit of that green. And the nice thing about this is also that you can wait for it to dry, or you can do it wet. So you can do either or. It doesn't really matter. You're going to get pretty similar effects. You can also, add other colors in as you do it. This is like, if I had I use this a lot for like trees and things, but in this case I'm kind of going a little softer, so I'm trying to kind of blend that paint while it's wet, trying not to get as much texture so that I get a little softer blend there. But you can see how nicely this brush works for this. Let's get a little bit of maybe a pink at the top here. Just go a little bit lighter. I'm just going to go across. Okay, and then this is wet. So, and I'm using my brush pretty juicy. Remember with scumbling, I wiped it all out. I didn't have a lot of paint on my brush. You do want paint on your brush for this one. Maybe not too much. It's not like globbed on there. You can still see the individual bristles along the edge there, and that's important. But I'm going to just kind of put that paint down, and then while it's wet, I'm just going to very lightly tap. Very lightly. And stippling is just a tapping up and down, back and forth. We're not kind of tapping too long in one place, but just kind of going back and forth. And again, I can go back in and add darker color to this. Now, one thing about the Deerfoot Stippler is that it does get kind of soggy. It's a natural hair. Not sure what kind of hair it is, but it is natural bristles, so it does get kind of soggy as you've used it. So you want to dry it out really well in between uses. I'm going to get just the Prussian Blue here and try to tap in some really dark along that bottom. And again, go a little bit thicker with the paint than you might normally do. Don't worry about that, and then wipe it out when you're first laying it down. And then you can go back over. You just have to make sure that the layers are wet while you're doing this if you want them to blend. And you can do this over dry paint too, so it just might show a little bit of your brush strokes if that paint underneath is not wet to kind of help blend. But there we go. Really easy and effective way of blending. And this is another one where you can do shapes and things in your paint. So it makes it really, really nice for like a foggy forest scene or something like that. I use it a lot for clouds, all kinds of things. All right, let me zoom out here. You can see them all. Okay, my colors turned out really weird. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Oh well.
No, it's good.
They're all right. I was wanting them to be a little bit more kind of along the lines of this, and I'm not really sure what happened.
It's okay.
Kind of pre-mixed some colors, thinking, okay, I want to do some like really fun colors. But okay, so this is the fun part. Let's go ahead and take our tape off here and see what we have. Oh, we have a big muddy mess. That tape did not. No, it's fine. It's not too bad. It's that one where we wet down the canvas first. On the wet on wet, it kind of seeped underneath, but that's okay.
Well, the tape is cute. It's not effective.
Right. No, the washi tape is not. I give it a 2 out of 10 here for the effectiveness.
A
on
10
this.
out of 10 for cuteness.
10 out of 10 for cuteness. 2 out of 10 for effectiveness of actually being a barrier to anything. But anyhow, there you have it, right? So wet on wet, wet on dry, double loading, glazing floating, scumbling, dry brush flick, mop brush extender with medium, and then stippled. Which one's your favorite?
I have to look at it. This way. I like the dry brush flick.
That one? Yeah. Yeah, that one's got character.
Yep. And I think we should sell this for about $1,000.
$1,000. Here, I was going to pull out this one and show you guys this one, because this one has just about every technique in it that we just used, right? So there's a lot of the dry brush flick in a lot of these areas here where you're going from the dark to light. And you can see we don't need to blend out completely to get a really interesting look. There's much more of that dry brush flick right there in there where I went back in with that orange. Right? I think we did maybe some floating along here to get our shadow, floating glaze to do our shadow. We also kind of did a little bit of the wet on dry right here along the edge where we kind of blended out that edge while it was still wet into the dry palette background. We added our dark shadow. I'm not sure if we did any scumbling on this one. I don't think we did. Or any stippling, really. Well, we did some stippling in here, bigger stippling. More chunky brushstroke stippling. But you get the idea. So take these, run with it, combine them. If you get comfortable with these and kind of get used to mixing and matching, using them all together, then you're gonna really go somewhere. I don't very rarely just use one type of blending technique on a painting and be done with it. You know, like a lot of times I'm just using all of these tricks to get, you know, my own personal style of painting that I like. So you do this with you know, you may like a really smooth blend on everything. So you may get really into the double loading and glazing and the wet on wet and wet on dry, and you know, using some extender to help you. You may even try the open acrylic, you know, glazing mediums, and give even more time to blend and get really like oil painting type, you know, blends with your paints. Yeah, so I'd love to hear your comments. Hopefully this was helpful. Hope you guys try this, try your own, you know, different kinds of blends and see what you come up with. But I hope this gives you a little bit more confidence in when you're doing your own painting, knows what to do and what not to do.
When did you do that painting that you just showed?
When did I do
The palette with the flowers.
Oh, that was only a couple months ago.
It was months ago?
Yeah, it was only a couple months ago.
How do I find it on your website?
You just go to the top of the free area
On your Patreon?
on my website. Just go to free
Free?
and scroll down. You should be able to find it
Oh,
right
there
there.
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Floral Artist Palette.
Yeah, floral
It's
artist
on
palette.
June 17th.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
that.
we
Wow, I said a couple weeks. Well, it's been 4 months.
Couple months. Yeah. Okay, so a couple
Wow.
months is June. No.
Wow, 4 months.
That's how.
Jeez.
That's how fast our months go. Oh yeah. I was gonna start to look for something, but now I forgot what I had notes here. I wanted to make sure that I told you what to avoid. So, just at the very end here, talking, kind of recapping everything. When you're mixing two colors, make sure that you know what color you're going to get when you blend them. So make sure that you pre-test to see what those two colors are going to make. If they're going to make mud, do wet on dry. Make sure you put one color down and add some white, let it dry completely, then add your second color. Okay. The other thing was over blending. So make sure that when you do your layering, that as your colors dry, don't do too big of an area. Try to work kind of small areas and blend them into each other, especially with something like this where you're kind of putting multiple colors in. Remember, you can always let it dry and come back to it. You don't want to continue to add more and more paint to an area, because you will get a big globby mess. Your paint will start to lift. You'll have all kinds of issues, and I see that a lot with beginners too, that they are not patient with the paint process and they don't want to wait for the paint to dry, or it doesn't look quite right, so they don't just let it dry. So I had to let this one dry and come back in and fix it later. So the first version of it wasn't dark enough on the bottom, but there was too many layers of paint down, and if I had continued to mess with it, it would have started to lift off the paint layers that were drying, that kind of thing. Okay, so don't overblend. And then the last thing would be, don't add too much water. Don't, especially in areas like wet on wet or the extender, you don't want to add water to those types of blending situations with a mop brush. You're not adding water to these ones because you have two paint colors that are the same viscosity. They're both fairly thick, probably ish. And if you're adding water to that, you're wetting, you're wiping away what you're working on. Okay, so when you're doing wet on wet, any of these wet on wet techniques, you do not want to add water. Okay, so those are my three like biggest things to avoid. I think that's it. We did it. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. We don't have time to do a lesson on this one, but next week we will be starting our Christmas stuff, so I'm really excited. I haven't set the schedule yet, but we're definitely going to be working on some really fun projects.
Yeah, I got to pick
got a
one
preview.
or say one.
Yeah,
Or tell her.
there's our preview of our Christmas colors too. We're going to be using more kind of like warm, fun palettes for some of them, not all of them, but this will be kind of our just a kind of candy colors in Christmas this year.
Nice.
I think it'll be fun. Yeah. So we'll do some ornaments. We'll do some trees. Maybe some, I don't know. I've got a few ideas in the whole
In the
brain.
brain.
I haven't figured it all out yet, but I have ideas. So, and I've had a poll going on. Thank you to those who've been in my Facebook group who helped me with ideas, because it really did help. I kind of was having a mental block there this week. I don't know. I always get to this time of the month where I have to decide on what I want to paint, and it's so hard. And the mushroom painting, although I loved it so much and had a ton of fun with it, and I got a lot of really good feedback on it, nobody's watching it, so part 2 did not work out. We're not going to do any more part 2s. Sorry, guys. It's just not working out. So,
It's all right.
yeah, we're not going to do any more of the long videos on YouTube because I can't.
On YouTube.
No, not on YouTube.
Different story on Patreon. That's a deep dive, much more detail, much more intricate, a lot more lessons and teaching on.
Yeah. Yeah. The
design.
Patreon stuff we'll work on. We're working on this guy, and we're going to have, it's 18 by 18 inch, so it's quite large. He's going to have antlers with birds and all kinds of fun stuff in it. And this one is going to go for 3 more weeks. We've already done 2 weeks on it to get to this point. And so that's a fun thing about the Patreon stuff. Meet with my Patreon folks on Thursdays, and we work on a project all the way through from start to finish. So these 2 that I showed earlier, this one was last month's Patreon challenge, and then this one was from last year or maybe the year before. But basically we work on these larger, more complicated paintings, and just work on them until they're done, and it takes several weeks usually to get them done. But
You even do the digital art part, show them how to create and change.
right, yeah, that's what we did last week with the deer, is we drew out the antlers and did the design on the tablet, so that, because it's all original art that I'm showing them how to do. And we did the same thing with this one. We edited photos. I showed you how to clip out the images, move them around, draw in the parts that are missing, and that kind of thing. And we did all of that together, and also the words and how to edit the words and make them fit into the books properly so that you can paint them in later, that kind of thing. So all of that fun stuff that I don't have time to show you on YouTube, we get to do together on my Patreon thing. So if anybody's interested, that's available. And then also for the $5 tier, there is Traceables and my beginner series. So we did have a blending in my beginner series. I think I actually went over a little bit more techniques tonight about just particularly blending. I think I only showed a couple different of my favorite techniques of blending in that beginner series one, but so this one's a good supplement to that one. But yeah, that one kind of covers all of acrylic painting, water control, and all kinds of stuff, and color mixing and all those fun things. So thankfulart.com has all of my tutorials. You can see all of the old challenge videos, all the old bonus videos that were for the $5 tier, and that beginner series. And see if you want to sign up, support us, or watch a bunch of free videos. We got over 100, 600, maybe more, maybe close to 1,000 free videos on there. So
A few hours worth.
a few, plenty. There's like 10 years worth.
Yeah, we've got a lot more coming.
A lot
Thanks
more to
to
come.
the amazing supporters that
You
we've
guys
had
are-
over the years.
yes.
You guys are incredible.
Yes, I really love our Patreon crew, especially our Thursday folks. They all kind of know each other and kind of chat, and just like you guys do here tonight. On
It's a great
Tuesdays.
community that we
It
have,
is. We
for sure.
we love you guys.
Yep.
All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much, and we'll.
Go trick-or-treating, get some candy.
Yes, I know. I think the rain's gonna stop here, so hopefully no rain and lots of candy for all the kids. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.